All right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Deanne's Daily Dose. And tonight we have the second one of a two-parter. We have both Republican candidates for Superior Court Judge number 3. Last night was the other one. Tonight is Guy DiMartino. And he's a fairly well-known name. If you watch any of the like commissioner meetings or council meetings or any of that stuff, we've heard the name. But the person himself, I was personally interested in getting to know, and I think this is a good way to do that. I'm not going to spoil the surprise because for those of you who may not be aware, he has a very diverse background. So I'm going to let him kind of get into that. And without further ado, welcome.
Thanks, Dion. Thanks for having me. I appreciate
Absolutely.
it. You know, I don't like talking about myself, and you want me to give you my background?
Yeah, unless you'd rather I do it.
Where would you like me to start?
Just, I guess,
I
basically.
was born in Brooklyn, New York.
Yeah, your little stump speech that, why people should vote for you and kind of who you are.
So I am a 3-profession professional. I started my professional career as a chiropractic physician. I practiced in Illinois, Indiana, and Florida. And I practiced from 1986 full-time until 2003.
Wow. Okay.
In the meantime, in 1995, I became an ordained priest in the Anglican Catholic Church, and I have a Master's of Divinity, although that's not from an accredited college. It was more of a church college. And I'm going on 31 years in the next few weeks of tending to parishes on a weekly basis. I got the bug in the mid-90s because I played racquetball with a number of lawyers in Maryville. So we would play at noon, and I decided, and I did a lot of medical legal work at that time in my practice. I decided, I live in Valpo. I'm going to go to Valpo Law School. So I went to Valpo Law School, and they decided that I was worth it, and they gave me a full scholarship to go to the school. And I graduated at Valpo at the top of my class, summa cum laude. I graduated 2 out of 122 folks. And then I went ahead and took a number of bar exams. I'm licensed in Indiana and Illinois and Florida, and recently licensed in Michigan. And so I have sort of a national practice. But I moved to Northwest Indiana when I graduated chiropractic college in 1986. I actually moved back here in May of 1987. And we've always had an affinity to Northwest Indiana. Okay. And the first parish that I took care of was a parish in Maryville called St. Andrew. And then I left it for a number of years. And then during COVID, I came back and helped get through COVID. And I've been there ever since. And I also periodically go up to a parish in Grand Rapids and a parish in Winter Haven, Florida. So,
wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I do have a varied background.
You do. Me personally, I relatively recently found out about the whole Anglican, is it priest in that?
Yeah. So we are an Anglican, we're the Anglican Catholic Church. We left the Episcopal Church in the 1970s over some changes that happened in the Episcopal Church. And we are a traditional Anglo-Catholic Church on the conservative scale.
Oh, okay. All right.
For instance, we do not have female clergy in our church. Things, not that there's anything wrong with that, and church would have it. It's just that that's the way that our faith is.
Right. That's the way you guys choose to practice. I get it. Okay. So just to make sure I understand, because I may have made some false statements, which I don't want to do. I was under the impression that you relatively recently lived here. So you're saying back in the 80s, you moved here.
Right. So,
And
right.
then,
Yeah, so I moved here in the 80s. In 2003, we moved to Florida, and I lived in both places
okay.
because my parents were getting older, and I still practiced up here for a period of time. And then we had our first grandchild. He's 12. He's going to be 12, and so then we started coming back more often, and then we've settled back here in Northwest Indiana. But we also have a residence in Florida. My wife likes to snowbird it, so that's probably why you haven't seen her in the last couple of months, nor my white dog Brody. So
Okay. All right. So I'm going to jump into just kind of some what I think are very interesting questions. As people should know, you're running for LaPorte County Superior Court number 3. What's your, I guess, brief rundown on what that court handles versus some other ones?
So it's a superior court.
Okay.
As a superior court, it has general jurisdiction. However, in order for the courts in LaPorte County to be a little more specialized and be more efficient, a number of cases have been segregated by the local rules. So, for instance, major felonies, depending upon where they will go to Superior Court 1 in Michigan City and Circuit Court.
Okay.
The misdemeanors and small claims and general civil jurisdiction will go to Superior 3 in LaPorte and Superior 4. Now, Superior 2 being a superior court, that court is known and was known since Judge King was in that court as sort of the general civil court. So most people would file in that court. They would file their tort actions, their contract actions, but they also file them in other court. You see them in Circuit, DO1, DO3, and DO4. So in order to streamline things, LaPorte Superior Court 3 has primarily a misdemeanor and traffic docket and also general civil jurisdiction, but it typically does not handle things like probate matters or divorce matters. You will see those in Circuit Court, you'll see those in Superior Court 2, and you'll see those in Superior Court 1.
Okay.
Now, for things that are outside of criminal matters, LaPorte County is one of the only counties around that you can still direct file into a court. For instance, if we go ahead and file a civil matter in Porter County or St. Joseph County or LaPorte County, it's a random filing system. You get the judge that you get.
Okay.
Except for things like a probate matter, which which is a will, or a trust matter. Okay. But in LaPorte County, civil matters can be directly filed in any superior court or the circuit court because those courts have general jurisdiction. So they've segregated the courts and the work in order to streamline things because we have a high volume of cases in LaPorte County and a small number of courts. So they figured when they did that case assignment that it would be better to do it that way.
Okay, interesting. So in LaPorte County, do you think it would be feasible? And not easy, obviously, but feasible. We've heard about like judge shopping for warrants, right? Maybe when you watch the legal shows, they'll say, we had to go judge shopping, but we were able to get the warrant signed. Is that something that the plaintiff's the one that would file, right?
Right. So on a civil matter, you mean?
Yeah. On a civil matter.
Yeah. So because a warrant would be sort of a criminal matter. And
right.
Typically, if you have to get a warrant signed immediately.
I'm not explaining it well, but yeah.
Right. And that's why. So typically, if you need to get a warrant signed immediately and it's after hours and everything, there's a duty judge or a judge that's on rotation. So that would be the judge that would do that. But in civil matters, you can pick the court.
Okay.
And so you can really shop the judge because different judges have different affinities.
Right.
And, there's certain judges that would be better suited to handle certain cases. So when I pick a judge and where to file a case, depending upon where the client is located, maybe so for instance, typically if it's something that's happened in Michigan City, my preference is to file it in one of the Michigan City courts.
Okay, that makes sense.
And if it's in LaPorte, typically to file it in one of the LaPorte courts.
Right.
So yes, you can judge shop, but you're not going to judge shop. You're not going to file. You're not going to direct file domestic relations in Superior 3.
Okay.
It's not going to go there. It'll go to Circuit or DO1 or DO2. So you'll have to pick one of those.
All right.
So yeah.
Interesting. Okay. So I want to first of all, I'm going to kind of let the audience in on something. I'm going to throw this on here real quick. So there was a case that I read about. I actually watched a little video on it and then went digging a little deeper and read about it. The headline is from Gizmodo. You guys can look it up. It says, Judge says witness wore smart glasses to sneakily inform their testimony. Subheading, a UK judge determined that a witness was being fed answers through his smart glasses during cross-examination. Now, the reason I bring that up is we all know that technology is accelerating. Smart glasses, lapels, even more things. Some are even self-contained, and they don't have any Bluetooth connections at all. A quick summary of this article, this guy wore smart glasses. His phone was connected via Bluetooth, and he had somebody on the other end of the line feeding him answers so that he could during his testimony. The only reason they caught this is because there was Bluetooth feedback or audio feedback. Anyway, with the rise of all of these AI devices, and we're seeing lawyers attempting to use AI to write their statements or quote cases that don't exist. Do you have plans for addressing the rise of smart technology in the court? And with the AI increase, or I should say AI use increasing with Chat GPT, and I guess there's like a robo lawyer website where you can go and essentially hire Chat GPT to do your case for you. We learn about these cases when the lawyers get it wrong, when Chat GPT gets it wrong, and it's obvious. But when they don't, how do we fix this? Because we know it's on the rise.
Yeah, I don't know that there's really going to be a fix. I think it's sort of going to be moving. Nobody would, for years, we used to have to go to status conferences and sit there for hours. And then we moved to video conferencing. And now most folks are getting familiar with video conferencing, and you don't typically see the person in their bathrobe except on YouTube where the judge calls them out.
Right.
And so that technology is sort of good for the courts. There is going to have to be, and there will be some software out there that you will be able to run the briefs through, and they will be able to determine whether it was plagiarized, because they have that for plagiarism now. Yeah. And they will be able to determine whether it was AI generated. And so the problem is not with the AI generation of the work product. The problem is, or where folks get in trouble, and we see it all the time, is they don't review it. Right. And so you can use AI judiciously. And I think it would be a very good thing. The bigger problem, Dion, that I see is not necessarily in the paperwork, because the paperwork, you can sort through that. Mm-hmm. Bigger problems with evidence. Mm. Okay, Nana Banana, Soria, they can make pictures that look very, very good now. And you can take the watermark off of the bottom.
Right.
So, say, for instance, I want to get back at my spouse, and I make a claim, and I go and file a protective order of at my spouse, and I want to say that they are physically abusive to me.
Right.
I could take a picture of me. I can ask Nana Banana to put bruising around my eyes, around my face. That's where we are really going to have issues in the courts. And I don't know how that, same thing with voice recording.
Mhm.
You can record, now you're into video.
Mhm.
Now there are softwares out there where that guy can train. I can sit with it and read scripts. It'll take my facial expressions, it'll take my voice, and then it will cut videos for me based on me just typing a transcript.
Yeah.
And it would
Yeah.
clone me.
Deep fakes. They're so prevalent now.
Yeah. And so that's going to be the biggest hurdle for the courts that I see. And so, like everything else, we were worried in 2000 about the, with the bytes, the 0 and the 1s. There's no way you can do it. The world's going to come to an end. I mean, Prince's 1999.
Yep.
I think that the courts are going to have to evolve in order to deal with those things. And I think that what's going to happen is that one of the good things about the world is that there are people who see problems and they're going to be able to try to fix problems or sort problems out. So there'll probably be some type of technology that will be able to ferret some of that stuff out. But that's where the bigger problem is. So say somebody wants to get you in trouble, they can put you outside somebody's house like you're breaking in.
Yeah. It gets you on a Ring doorbell cam.
Yeah. That's that's where the problem could be with AI.
Yeah. Evidence generation, obviously faking evidence. It's bad no matter what, but it's so easy now.
Right. Yeah. So that's really what I see. And it's, we can embrace technology, but we are going to have some safeguards as to how we're going to deal with the advance in technology. But I don't think we know yet how to do it.
Right. It's a very difficult thing to potentially try to figure out. I mean, heck, even the plagiarism checkers for the universities that they're using are imperfect. Templates, for example, generate, heavily plagiarized. Well, obviously it's a template. Parts of it are being recycled. So anytime there's an explosion in new technology, we have a reactionary justice system. So we have to catch up to it. So I'm gonna pivot just slightly, and still in relation to the justice system. It might have been you actually that I heard mention this, but I heard that there was a lawyer shortage, particularly here in Indiana, but kind of all over. How bad is the shortage, and why do you think people should practice law as opposed to many other potentially better paying careers out there and far less stressful?
Well, those are multiple questions. So let me ask the first question. There is a legal desert in a number of areas, or a lawyer shortage, and we see it here in LaPorte County. Most folks have gray hair like myself. And we do not see a big crop of 30 somethings, which have, 5 years in practice, 6 years in practice.
Yeah.
Where you see a lot of these younger kids going is you see them going into the bigger cities. They want to live in Chicago. They want to live in Miami. They want to live in Nashville, even though they could probably do better in a place like LaPorte County, because there's not as much competition and you can become a bigger fish in a smaller pond.
Yeah.
So the closing of Valparaiso, we're starting to see, because people would come to Valpo from different areas of the country. They would end up liking it here. They would realize, even though the weather has been really, bad the last few days, they would realize that we have the beach. We're close to Chicago. We can run to Michigan. So we have a lot of things within close proximity. And so then they would stay.
Right.
And so then the bigger firms that we had, the bigger firms would be able to hire people either in law school or right out of law school. They'd have a crop of associates. Many of them would stay for 5 years, 4 years, get their oats, either go into practice or go into a smaller firm or start something up. And then there would be a constant crop of new people. So what we've seen is in Northwest Indiana, we used to have, so I've been practicing, for well over 25 years. In Northwest Indiana, we had, when I started practicing, pretty much 3 or 4 what we were the larger firms. 3 of those firms have constricted to pretty much nothing.
Oh, wow.
And what we see is that with the constriction, there are Indianapolis firms that have satellites in our area. There are Chicago firms. There are firms that have. So you see this constriction. And so without the feeder system for folks being, because if Valpo would graduate, some years they'd graduate 150 lawyers, some years they'd graduate 300 lawyers in that year, you would always have some that would stay around. And so then they would grow up, they would have their kids, they would go to church, they would have their families, and then they would make a home here. And so we don't have that anymore. So like when you look at the lawyers in Michigan City, a lot of folks are getting ready, they're getting close to retirement.
Yeah.
The people who have been around for a while. So that's what we see transpiring.
Okay.
And a lot of folks are not wanting to go into the law because even if they get a law degree, because they can go into become a lawyer and then go into some technology company and try, and make a lot of times more money because, a lot of lawyers, everybody thinks they also see the billboards, but a lot of lawyers don't make a ton of money.
Right. Especially just starting out.
Yeah. I'm blessed because I have a pretty strong practice and I do well. And so then you ask, the third part of the question you asked is, why do you need lawyers?
Mm-hmm.
Because lawyers can keep things hopefully honest. Lawyers can help keep the state honest. If you're looking at criminal charges, don't let power abuses go on. Lawyers can help a lot of times put families together, or families have to separate. Lawyers can help them separate. Lawyers can help resolve multiple conflicts, whether it's, most of the time when it's a civil matter. So for years, lawyers used to be attorneys and counselors at law.
Right.
And so the better lawyers who do civil type work, their first role is giving information to their clients, leading their clients through the system, and hopefully making it so people can resolve things and move on, because litigation is very expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And that's something that's inescapable regardless. It doesn't matter what at least it seems to me, it doesn't matter what level of, I guess, interaction with the legal system. If an attorney's involved, it's going to be expensive. But why do you think more people should become attorneys to kind of fight this, or should they?
I think folks who decide to become attorneys should not make that choice for the money.
Okay.
I think that if you get a law degree, you can do a bunch of things with a law degree. So I think a law degree is a very good thing, because it teaches you to think like a lawyer. It gives you analytics, and you can go ahead and do anything with that. But I think you should only go into the practice of law if you have a desire to do something. For instance, if you have a desire to protect people who have been charged with crimes, if you have a desire and a penchant to go ahead and prosecute crimes, if you have a desire to help people who have been injured by work-related injuries, if your jive is that you want to do church law. And, there's a whole thing out there of church law, developing nonprofits and dealing with, rules and regulations and policies that churches have to deal with, screening, safety, dealing with, problems and having rules and regulations to protect against abuse. So there's a whole bunch of areas of law so if you become a lawyer, and you have a desire for something, you can do it and you can make a practice of it. Not necessarily in LaPorte County. You might have to go someplace else, but anything that you dream of, you can actually go ahead and do it as a lawyer. But just doing the law for a job, there's much better jobs. I work 70 hours a week. I'm up at tomorrow I have two major briefs that are due. You know what I mean? So, and nowadays with clients, they will not wait a day for you to respond.
No.
Because Amazon, you order something today, it's there at 11 o'clock at your door. They expect your response like that. So you have all that stress also. So,
Right.
you
We're
know,
an instant. Yeah,
Yep.
we've become such an instant gratification society that people just, and it's not just working with attorneys or expecting, quick responses. It's in every aspect. It seems people are just a lot less patient than they used to be. So slight pivot. Other than being a lawyer, which is kind of a prerequisite for judge, just a little, what side quests or volunteer work have you done, and how has that altered your worldview or the way you would administer justice, or has it?
Where would you like me to start?
Right, you
So
covered a lot of it in the beginning.
I have donated my time to things that I believe.
Okay.
I have represented and taught CLE classes and lectured for years to chiropractic organizations
Okay.
because on things that they need to know: contracting rules, law, staying out of trouble, malpractice.
Right.
I donate a bunch of time with my church on a national level, and I am the chancellor for the church. So
Okay.
I recently helped. Well, I can't say resolved. I recently helped settle an issue with our churches in South Africa because
Okay.
there are different issues. I do a lot of work for folks who can't pay for it. If what my staff does in my office is say, don't let Guy talk to these folks. He can't say no just because I can't. So if I have been involved in pretty much almost every type of case.
Okay.
Or been exposed to almost every type of case that a lawyer could, or a factual scenario. And I'm not talking about really weird specific stuff, but I'm talking about that would confront a general person. My practice is so varied because I have a lot of interest and a lot of skills. So, I mean, just this quarter of the first quarter of this year, if I told you the different cases that came to conclusion or anything, you would just be like, well, wow, I just know people as divorce lawyers or probate lawyers or this.
Yeah.
So if I have an interest in it, it's something that I can take on and do.
Okay. Okay. So, yeah. And like I said, you covered in the beginning, you obviously have a very varied background, and I was stunned when I learned about the chiropractic and the Anglican priest. I'm like, and you still somehow find time to be an attorney who is kind of juggling several hats right now with the county, because, as you said, we have a serious attorney shortage in Northwest Indiana. And it doesn't seem like it because, when you look remember the yellow pages, remember when we had actual phone books, but if you Google attorney near me, it looks like there's a lot of names until you realize that this is a large and pretty heavily populated area in Northwest Indiana. And even though some attorneys will, from Chicago, for example, will take whatever they need to do, I'm not familiar with it, but in order to practice in other states like you have, not all of them. So you might have a ton of Chicago law firms, but they can't do anything in Indiana.
And when you Google lawyer near me,
Mhm.
a lot of those are just directories
Right.
that people pay for. And so even if you click through that stuff, you're not going to find somebody local. You're not going to find somebody that knows the judges. You're not going to find somebody
Right.
that knows the intricacies of the area. And for a lot of cases that really matters, especially like we were talking earlier, being able to direct file. One of the
Mm.
benefits, if you have something in LaPorte County, having a LaPorte County lawyer is
Right.
they know the courts, they know how the courts move, they know what judges would have a better propensity for the type of case.
Right.
And if you have somebody from Chicago, they just don't know that.
Exactly. And that's even if they even have because it's separated by state, because the states control the I guess the laws for their judges.
Yeah, you have
right?
to be right. Well, or for lawyers, yes, you have to be
Right.
licensed in the state. So I'm local counsel for a number of firms, throughout where they want a local person. And so then if you're a Chicago firm, you have a case, you want to do something in LaPorte County, you reach out to somebody like me or another lawyer, and then we will be the local counsel, and then we can move them in occasionally, what we call pro hoc vice. We can get them licensed for that case, as long as we vouch for them and we make sure that they follow the rules. So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay.
And so you asked, how is that going to inform me in being a judge? And I don't know if you've seen me over the years, but I'm not like quick to like give answers. I think about things and I contemplate things and I say, well, let's revisit that. So what my experiences have taught me is that, especially if you're going to look at a misdemeanor court like Superior 3 or small claims and eviction, is that because the judge is the person in those cases that a lot of times is the trier of fact and is making the decision.
Okay.
That you need to take into consideration all the circumstances. And sometimes justice needs to be modified based on the situation.
Right.
And so you can't allow your propensities and your biases to make the decisions. You need to separate yourself from what's in front of you and then look at it, analyze the facts, stay within the law, and then render your decision.
Right.
So if somebody, has a problem with alcohol and they have 2 kids at home or 3 kids at home, maybe it's better if we can divert them to a problem solving court for the alcohol, because if they have to go and spend time in the pokey, how are those kids going to be taken care of?
Right.
But if you can put them in a long-term treatment where they're getting support services, but yet you have the hammer over their head that they will go to jail if they do it, maybe you can make a change in their life, but you're not only going to change their life, you're going to change the kids' lives, because we all know that the sins of the parents, a lot of times the kids get the brunt of it. And so that requires somebody who can see into those things and has been in a lot of different situations and is sort of a problem solver. Because it's easy to say, you're here, you did this, you're going to get the maximum.
Right.
But that maximum, or whatever it's going to happen to them, okay, how many other people is that going to affect? Maybe we can give them something in the middle and then have a stick over them in order to make sure that they make some changes so they don't become a frequent flyer. Because in the criminal courts, there are tons of frequent flyers because they go back into that environment. Now, there are people that need to go to jail. There are people that, you know what I mean? That there are people that need to pay damages for something that they've done. But So that's what I think that I bring,
Okay.
that I would bring to the bench. I'm a problem solver, and sometimes as a judge, you need to be a little bit of a problem solver within
Okay.
the bounds of the law. You can't
Right.
make the law up.
Right. That's the real key, is within the bounds of the law. So a couple more questions. Has there been a case throughout your career that has stuck with you, either good or bad? And what did you learn from it? And did it end up changing how you practiced law?
Yes.
Okay.
So I was a relatively not a young person, because law was my second or third career, as you want, but I was a young lawyer. And I was trying a case in Crown Point in front of a judge who recently retired. And the judge made a bad ruling.
Okay.
Okay. And I allowed the judge to bully me into a place where I did not, where I believe, fight harder for my client.
Okay.
And so I vouched at that time that in my trial bag, I will always bring a toothbrush.
Okay.
And if there is some wrong, I will be respectful, but I will not sit down until the judge corrects the wrong or holds me in contempt and puts me in the pokey so I have my toothbrush to brush
Gotcha.
my teeth.
Okay.
Not to be disrespectful,
Right.
because I would never be disrespectful, but that situation needed to be taken care of. So we lost the case.
Okay.
I filed a motion to correct error, which is asking the court to fix the error. There's time limits and jurisdictional limits with motion to correct errors,
Okay.
which you might, if you've been following the Friedman-Stabos case, that was one of the issues, that the judge's order came out a day or two too late.
Right.
This judge did the same thing at that time. He granted me a new trial 24 hours too late.
Oh, okay.
But my client did not want to go through the appellate process and go through it. So I vouched at that time, when there's something that can be corrected in the courtroom at that time, that I am going to correct it, because otherwise 23 years later, you asked me a question and that's what popped into my mind.
Right. Right.
So,
and those are the kinds of cases that, at least in my opinion, again, that make careers or change how you do your career, which it obviously has. Like you said, it has stuck with you all these years and made, I guess, a fundamental shift in at least importance of certain things.
yeah, I could tell you about cases that I've gotten millions of dollars for clients, but that's not the winning. You don't learn or you don't grow from the winning.
Right.
You
right.
learn or grow when you have been beaten down, or when you've lost something, or when you didn't do something that was perfect, or stand up for something, because that's where you make your marks. Because if you just look at the good things, then you never become better. You're never able to sharpen that edge.
I would tend to agree with that. Okay, so you mentioned excuse me, sorry. You mentioned before that one of the fundamental, I guess, positives of having a lawyer that's local, kind of know everyone. So, and I spent a lot of time trying to figure out how to word this question, so I think I finally got it. And it speaks directly to that. Is one thing that's become clear in all aspects of our government is that networks, not just friendship networks, but kind of like, this guy's really good at this. So it's prevalent in all levels of the government, and the legal system is no different. What would you say to people that may have concerns about past associations, representations, or perceived favoritism, or the opposite of that, whatever that is.
So the part that probably you and I like about LaPorte County is that you do get to know everybody. And when you're good at what you do and you have a good reputation, people want you to go ahead and do work for them. Right. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And I think we've seen this, following county government and everything like that. We've seen this with vendors, and we've seen this with, people become comfortable. Right. And people become go-to people because of trust or because of relationships, because the world is about relationships.
Right.
Now, as a lawyer, I have a very defined role. My role when I am retained is to accomplish what my client needs accomplished within the bounds of the law. Okay. So I have represented on both sides of the coin people who needed representation.
Right.
I have been on opposite sides of cases with Stabos. I have represented his interest because my role is, and when I was deposed in that case, I explained the same thing. My role as a lawyer sometimes is not a popular role.
Right.
Because people will look at me and say, well, why did Guy go and stand with X? Not necessarily because I believe X is right, or not necessarily because I believe what X did was proper, but because X needed somebody there just to make sure that the guardrails were in place and that things were done right.
Right.
So, and that's what the general public a lot of times doesn't understand. You know what I mean? Because they think that you need to go into, and it's difficult with the lawyer because, especially in an area where you practice where, people are going to be adverse and you might be representing A this month and B that month. And people would say, well, how could you do that? Because the rules or conflict of interest regarding lawyers is not what the average person would say that's a conflict of interest.
Okay.
So, you know what I mean? So when a lawyer looks at a conflict of interest, say I represented you, Dion.
Right.
Okay. And our representation is over.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or whatever it is. And then God forbid you got in a car accident and it was your fault.
Right.
And you injured a little old lady. And little old lady comes to Guy to represent. Okay. You would say, well, Guy, you got a conflict of interest. You can't do that. And I would say, not really, because the rules would ask this question. The rules would say, is there something about the representation that I got from Dion which would give little old lady a benefit? So if Dion came to me in our representation and told me about 86 car accidents that he had before, then it would be a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
But if I represented Dion for a contract dispute, which had nothing to do with driving, but if Dion told me that he was blind, I would say, I could use that against me. So that's what would trigger the conflict of interest.
Okay.
So, but you would be saying, well, why is Guy representing her? And I would be saying Dion would want Guy to represent her because Dion would know that Guy is going to be fair and not beat Dion up. Okay. So that's sort of where the average person might see a conflict of interest, but there's really not a legal conflict of interest. Does that sort of make sense?
It does. It does. There's
Yeah.
there's a different standard as
Right.
far as because one of the important aspects of running for judge, especially for one, when I first started doing this show and interviewing candidates, I didn't realize that judge candidates had different rules than other candidates. And it's very detailed, and I don't pretend to understand it, but it's very particular things that are very different than standard candidates. And so I understand what you're saying, at least in a legal sense, there are much different, I guess, I'm thinking of a particular term that escapes me, but I guess burden of proof for
the analysis is different. It's a different analysis.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I can't come and say, no judge candidate can come to the Dion show and say, if X came before me, I'm going to do Y.
Right.
How do you know?
How do you know?
Right.
Yeah.
But you get a candidate for council, they can say, I'm going to cut taxes. I'm not going to overspend.
Right. Right.
So it's a different,
very different rules and regulations as to what you can talk about and the way you can fundraise. Like everything is very, very different. So,
right. Like I don't talk to anybody. I have a campaign person. She does everything.
Right. Right. Yeah. The judge candidate.
Checkbook. I don't anything like that.
Right. Yeah. That's one of the things that I learned as well is that it's very particular the way judge candidates can and can't raise money. It's kind of wild. Let's see. There was one more thing. So speaking of the whole, well, first of all, I only got a couple more questions for you. The first one is why Superior Court 3 versus another court?
Because Superior Court 3 puts you in situations where you can really make a difference in people's lives. Okay. Because a lot of the docket in Superior Court 3 is like a people's docket, for lack of a better word. It's like a Judge Judy docket.
Okay, no, that makes a lot of sense.
You have the landlord coming in, and you have the single mother, and they were late on their rent, and so sometimes you can craft resolution where both would be happy, and on in day 5 you're not putting the single mom out with her baby on the street.
Right.
So that is, but then the next case that comes up can be a $5 million contract case.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Or an injury case that has a whole bunch of complex issues. So there's a wide variety that you would see. And I don't want to do divorce. I didn't want to do divorce cases, and I don't want to sit on divorce cases. So that kicks Superior 2 out and circuit out. Yeah,
I can't imagine like enjoying doing divorce cases because oh my goodness, they get nuts, man. They get absolutely nuts. Okay,
so that did that answer your question?
It did. So okay. you would view Superior Court 3 as, I guess well, you said it like Judge Judy or some other interventional type of court where you're able to correct people's lives on a small level, or at least help them on a small level before it gets to a bigger level, I guess.
Right. Before it gets to felony court.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where your hands are tied. The person's, or you can't catch there's a progression with these folks who are frequent flyers. They continually make bad choices, and then things get progressively up. But if you can potentially have some intervention or some impact when things first start, you might be able to change 1 or 2 or 5 or 10 people's lives. Okay. You know what I mean?
I do. Yeah. I think that's an excellent response. How do you feel? So with COVID and all of the restrictions that came with that, one of the big rise we saw was remote technology for courts, for our public service, our public servants, county council, commissioner, all of these, groups, for lack of a better term, have had to figure out how to use technology for remote streaming, for remote appearance, things like that. What is your take on technology in court, in particular live streams and I guess public access to?
I could talk all day about that.
Okay.
So as you know, I had two full-time practices, pretty much, one in Florida and one here.
Mm-hmm.
And before COVID, Florida, because it was such a large state, had a general rule that if a hearing was 15 minutes or less, and the lawyer requests it, they can attend the hearing by electronic means. And it was typically through a system called court call. And so it was an operator that would put people in. And that's because to get from one side of if you're going to go from Miami to the Panhandle, you're talking about a 12, 14-hour drive for a 15-minute hearing.
Yeah.
Okay. So even before COVID, electronic means what I was using. But for my practice, COVID became a blessing, because I was able to do most of my type of practice, because I didn't practice a lot of criminal law, which requires you to be right here like we're doing now.
Right.
So I'm able to, and so that's why I learned the technology, and that's why you can see I'm decent with this type of technology. Now, so this allows me, when I was working for a firm in Florida, there was 1 year that I traveled 40 weeks. I was doing medical malpractice defense. One day I'd be in California. The next day I'd be in Boston at Brigham and Women's Hospital taking depositions. This allows me to sit here now, and I can depose anybody. I can attend a hearing anywhere if the court allows it. I was recently in Sumter County, Florida, on a contested trust case. One of the parties was in Australia. The court brought that person in on a live stream on what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
And so she didn't have to travel from Australia to Florida for her 20-minute testimony.
Right.
I've had experts, who can't make it, that the court has allowed to come in and testify regarding these means, and it's been just as effective.
Okay.
So I think that it will really streamline cases. The other thing that it does is, if you have something that's substantive, it requires you to prepare. Like you prepared for this, it requires you to have all your ducks in a row, because you want to have your documents in order, like a PowerPoint. Yeah. You know what I mean? So document 1, document 2, document 3.
Yep.
And so it can be very effective. Superior 2 live streams their cases.
Okay.
So
Superior
when I
3 does not.
Well, they do some, but Superior 2 live streams, they're one of the live streaming courts.
Okay.
And so my mother, she's retired, and she when I tried a murder case in January in that court, she watched the case. You know what I mean?
That's cool.
She was, so she was, so that's really good. And so if the voters decide that I would be the better choice in this election, I have a lot of plans that I think can help streamline the court because of the frustrations that I've seen as a lawyer. Yeah. And one of them is, for cases like criminal cases or eviction cases or small claims, sometimes they have set dockets where people have to come in.
Yeah.
But for cases when there's lawyers involved and when there are things that need to be scheduled, I am going to, by hook or crook, have some type of online scheduling. Because
Okay.
the bane of every lawyer's existence is when you have 3 or 4 lawyers on a case and you're trying to coordinate a time with the court.
Yeah.
The emails and the phone calls, and this one's not here and this one's not there. My staff wants to jump out the window.
I could
But
see
if I have a calendar slot, they can go in and sign up for it, and then they have their appointment. All they have to do is file a notice of hearing in the court so everybody gets it.
Yeah.
And as long as they don't abuse it and not show, it will make things much more efficient on the lawyers who practice and the court. Because the court staff has to listen to our offices. Oh, I'm not available on this day. Do you have this day available? Do you have this day available?
Right.
And so, something like, some places have judicial calendaring systems, but maybe you've ever been through Calendly or something like that. You know what I mean? Where people can click, I need a half-hour hearing time. I need a 45-minute hearing time. As long as people don't abuse it. If people abuse it, we block them. They can't get into it.
Okay. Yeah. What do you think about, do you think that it's a good thing to have, I guess, 24-hour, or not 24-hour, but instant live streaming ability for the court? Or do you think that a delay would be better?
No, I think instant is good. Because I think most people learn about courts on TV.
Yeah.
Cases are much more boring than the hour court Law and Order.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But there are people who watch it will learn a number of things. They'll learn how to behave in court. They'll learn how to act. They'll learn not what to do. They'll learn what to do, and they might pick up on things. So and not only that, you get to see that lawyers, even though they're on other side, work together. If somebody's equipment breaks down, you let them use your equipment.
Right.
You see that the judge is not supposed to be a Budinsky, not supposed to butt in. The judge is supposed to sit there like a wallflower, like I do in the meetings, until somebody does something wrong. And then, so people will, people will see the judicial system the way it is, because so many people, when they hire a lawyer, I want a bulldog. I want you to destroy that other person. But that's not how it works. The legal community is small. Mm-hmm. We try to treat each other with respect, because we have to deal with those other people, even though we might be against each other on that case. You know what I mean? So, and that's what people don't understand. So people are like, well, why'd you shake his hand? Well, because he's a colleague.
Right. Fair enough. Okay. Listen, I really, really appreciate you coming on and taking the time out of your obviously very busy schedule to come and sit down and have a chat. So real quick, if people want to learn more about you, your background, and support you, they should visit DiMartino-judge.com.
Yeah.
It's at the bottom of the screen if you guys want to learn more about Guy. Is that also where they go if they want yard signs or any other?
Yep. Or if you want to learn about my judicial philosophy, you can go every day. I post the short on my judicial philosophy on Facebook. So I've been doing it since January. So there's probably 40 or 50 shorts there explaining my thoughts and what I believe a judge's role should be. If people want to know about my demeanor, there are hundreds of hours of tape from the council meetings and the commission meeting. You could see how I act in sometimes very difficult situations and try to wrangle people. And I believe that all the judges who are running for Superior 3 have experience.
Yes.
There's nobody here that's a 2-year lawyer. But experience is only as good as what you've learned from that experience and how you apply that experience. Because as a judge, you have to have the temperament, you have to have the neutrality, and you have to look at the totality of the circumstances in order to make a ruling that's fair and just, whether it's to the lawyers or to the participants. So it's not the experience, it's what you have learned from your experiences that make a difference in a judge. And when it comes to I think that that's what I bring to the table.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
As always, we wish you guys both good luck, and we'll see what happens. I will ideally, whomever wins after the primary, I plan on inviting each back on for another round if you're down for that. If not, I get it. But it's been a pleasure. Truly. Thank you for taking the time out. And again, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to learn more about Guy, go to DiMartino-judge.com, JUDGE.com. So DiMartino-judge.com, and you can learn all about Guy DiMartino, his fascinating history, and potentially decide who you think should be the next judge of LaPorte County Superior Court.
And I would say, if you're going to go there, don't look at my biography, because that really doesn't matter. I would recommend that you go to my endorsement page and read the endorsements, because it's not people that are political people that are here. There are people that have known me for 25, 30 years in all walks of my life, and they talk as to the person that I am, not saying, hey, Guy's a great guy.
Right.
That's not. So if that's what I would see what other people say.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And just so you guys know, I'm planning on doing a kind of a wrap-up show when we get a little bit closer, once we've scheduled the various candidates that can come on, and we'll discuss everything at the end. So thank you very much again. I appreciate you taking the time.
My pleasure.
We'll see you
Thanks
again
for
soon.
having me. Yep. I'll see you, Dion. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Guy DiMartino. He is running for Superior Court 3. We'll see what happens. He's running the Republican primary. Just FYI, the Democrat primary only has a single person running for this particular slot, whereas the Republican primary has 2. Last night we had his competitor on. Tonight we had him on, and you guys are the deciding factor. I don't pick for you. It'd be easy if I could just say, yep, that's the one you guys should vote for, but I don't do that. You need to make up your own mind. I will say, if we hold on, I'm gonna throw this up on screen just to see what we got here, so you guys can. Let's see here. I don't know if you guys think I should do this on an episode or not, but here we go. So we got here's his website, DiMartino for Judge. That's the home splash page, which says the LaPorte Superior 3, fidelity, neutrality, discernment. Guy S. DiMartino for Judge. And then at the top, it's got biography, campaign committee, and endorsements. You click on endorsements, and it is a lot. I will say it is a lot here. So yeah, lawyer. Okay, Archbishop and Metropolitan, lawyer, which, I mean, it makes sense. He's a lawyer, and then a client. So, okay. I mean, but ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, it's up to you. I can tell you all day about these people. I can present them to you. I can give them a few minutes to talk about themselves. I can make, okay graphics to show you who they are. But ultimately, you're the one who has to make the decision. So pretty soon, we're going to have more candidates coming on, and the little informative shorts where I like to talk about stuff will be resuming. I apologize to all the people. I've talked to a lot of people who have said, "Hey, man, you gonna get back on this or what?" Yes, I am. I will be the first to admit that things kind of took a dark turn after my grandmother passed, and I just kind of pulled into myself. We had other people as well who passed away that I haven't discussed, but ultimately took a little break, a little step back. And so I'm going to try to jump back in for you, ladies and gentlemen. With that, I appreciate your time as always, and we'll talk to you again real soon. God bless you. God bless Indiana, and God bless the United States of America. Thank you, and good night.
Appearance on Dion's Daily Dose does not imply endorsement from or by any candidate or guest. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed by Dion Bergeron or Dion's Daily Dose are his own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of any guest. Material and information presented is for general information purposes only. The Dion's Daily Dose name in all forms and abbreviations are the property of its owners, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service. If you'd like to support the show, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Dion.